You pick your child up from daycare. Everything feels normal. The teacher's smile, the warm jacket, that familiar voice. He calls you mom. But on the way home you can't shake the thought, this isn't your child. He did great today, she said, just a little tired by the end. I picked Sam up from daycare a little later than usual. Rain poured almost the entire way there, and I worried they'd kept him inside too long. Mrs. Ellie, the senior assistant, walked him out to the porch, like she always did. Sam ran up to me, clutching his yellow raincoat in one hand. He hugged me like usual, one arm, a little off-center. He smelled like soap, glue, and something sweet. Probably talked someone into giving him a cookie again. Hey, buddy, I kissed the top of his head. How was your day? Fine, he said. Everything about him looked right, familiar, but as we walked to the car, I felt it. Something was off. He wasn't him. Sam got into the back seat and buckled up by himself. He chattered on about a boy named Eli, some figurines, and red paint. I nodded along. It all sounded normal, but like it had been copied. His voice had the right tone, but not the right rhythm. I noticed something strange. Not a single one of his usual phrases. No. Mom, can I? No, I won like Superman. Instead, he was calm, way too calm. He didn't stumble over his words, didn't interrupt, like he was acting out a script. In the Target parking lot, I turned off the engine and just sat there. I watched him through the rearview mirror. He stared out the window, playing with his shark keychain, and I thought, if this isn't him, how would I even prove it? At home, he took off his shoes and lined them up perfectly, hung his coat on the hook, but he never did that. He always tossed it on the floor, and I'd say, Sam, seriously? It was our little ritual, our rhythm, not tonight. Everything was too perfect. I gave him a glass of orange juice. He said thank you, and went to watch cartoons. Too polite, too quiet, too good. That night I looked through his daycare notebook. Usually his drawings were wild, rockets, monsters, scribbly comics, but this time, just a black rectangle, and one line underneath. This is me. I called my husband, Tom. Everything okay? He asked. I think so. I don't know. Sam's just acting weird. Weird how? He's different, calmer, like, too calm. Didn't you just say you wished he'd settle down a bit? He had a point, but this wasn't that. I didn't respond. He was right, but it wasn't that. That night I woke up around 3 a.m. The house was silent. No rain, no cars, just the low hum of the HVAC. I walked to Sam's door and paused. He was breathing, evenly, slowly, too slowly. I went back to bed. But the thought wouldn't leave me. What if he really isn't mine? What if something shifted, and I just forgot when? I remembered a random tweet. Some woman wrote about foreign child syndrome after a coma. Her kid looked and talked the same, but she couldn't believe he was hers. Doctors called it stress, trauma, depersonalization. I sat in the kitchen, set my mug down on the table. My hands were shaking. I couldn't tell if I was afraid for him or of him. The next morning I dropped him off at daycare. Mrs. Ellie smiled again. Everything okay? You look a little tired. Yeah, just didn't sleep well, I said. She nodded. I drove away, and then I just sat there, in the Whole Foods parking lot, hands on the wheel, fingers numb. I remembered not recognizing my mother after the hospital, how old she looked, how my own dog felt wrong after I came back from college, and how, in one dream, I couldn't recall Sam's face. I called his name, but it stayed blank. I don't look for answers anymore. I just observe. I still care for him. I make his lunch, I wash his dishes, I fold his tiny clothes. But sometimes, I catch him watching me, too closely, too intently, like he's waiting for me to question it again, and I'm afraid to admit it. In the deepest corners of my mind, in the parts I try not to touch, I'm no longer sure I ever truly recognized him to begin with.